So, hi everyone, and welcome to the e-smartec capacity building webinar, the second and final webinar of our end of phase one webinar series. My name is Laura Babio. I am a project officer at POLIS Network, the European network of cities and regions for sustainable and innovative transport. And today we'll be moderating this webinar. Before we go through already the content and our speakers, let me just go through some very general rules on the webinar. Just for you to know, this webinar is being recorded and we will upload it to our YouTube channel as well as to our Interreg website. Please keep the microphone muted while you're not speaking. This is mainly affecting the speakers. So also I will ask all the speakers that after the introduction, once you are speaking, to keep the video off while it's not your turn, so you don't take too much space in the screen. And then finally, for everyone else, if you have any questions, you can use the Q&A box as well as the chat, since we will be monitoring both of them. And before we go through the panels, if you were already in our first webinar Monday, of course, you already heard a little bit this, but it's important for those that weren't to know a little bit the logic behind this webinar series. So e-smartec, for those that don't know, it's an Interreg Europe project. The project, the consortium, is formed by 9 partners, 6 of which are regions, the regions of West Midlands, the regions of the Venlo region, the Lazio region, the state of Hessen, the Bratislava self-governing region, and the region of Central Macedonia. And at the end, e-smartec, the main aim is really to facilitate that shift to sustainable modes, what a little bit most of the people in the transport world are working on. But particularly what the big aim is to enhance the citizen and the stakeholder engagement in sustainable urban mobility planning, and with the particularity to do so through marketing techniques. And to achieve this, the project was divided in 2 phases. Phase 1 that just finished this Monday, which is why we are having these webinars right now, to really disseminate the results coming from this phase, which focused in learning experience. During this phase, really the e-smartec partners focused on studying methods of co-planning, co-assignment, engagement, and as we saw on Monday, all of these to really develop an inter-regional learning process. We saw some of the good practices that were collected, we saw some of the tools that were generated, and today we are actually going through the capacity building activities of this learning process. So how to help the regions increase their capacity. And the second phase of the project, that I'm not going to dwell too much on it, it's about the action plan in terms of implementation. Each of the e-smartec regions developed an action plan with the good practices and those that really feed better the regions, with, again, the aim of providing or making the shift happen to sustainable mobility, as well as increased participation of their citizenship. But we don't talk too much about this because this phase is just starting this week, so there's still not that much to talk about. We'll probably do so with another webinar at the end of the year. But today we are really focusing on the capacity building activities of this phase 1 of the project. We have 3 e-smartec partners to bring some of their experiences. First, we'll start with Chiara, with Chiara Di Maggio from Roma, who is going to show us how to create some of these capacity building activities training. We will have Anna Puliu from the region of Central Macedonia to how to implement these activities created by Roma with their own experiences in the region. We have Alessia Georgiuti, my colleague also from POLIS Network, that will see how to translate the exercises into an e-course to make it last longer. And then finally, today we also have the collaboration from another Interreg project from PU4Trans with Camila Dobek from the Municipality of Poznan, that is going to show us also some of her activities. So without further ado, then I will give the stage to Chiara. I will ask the other speakers, including myself, to turn off the video while she presents. And just for everyone to know, Chiara Di Maggio is an environmental engineer. She's working in the Mobility Agency of Rome as a project manager, and she's experienced in European funded research in the sustainable mobility, ITS, and environmental impact domains. So with that, I leave the stage to Chiara.
Okay, hello everyone. This is my presentation, and it will be about the process in which within the e-smartec project, which Laura has already presented, in which we had to set up a training course for our partners and for the local stakeholders. Please, Laura, can you go ahead? Okay. Where we started from, the topic of this project was all about the SAMP and the SAMP process and the participatory approach. Then we combined it with the marketing techniques, engagement methods. The project had quite a complex background, because this was the topic we were talking about. We had to set up a training for 6 regions in 6 languages, with 6 completely different approaches towards participatory planning. The status of advancement of SAMP was different in the regions, and of course we had 6 sets of stakeholders, or let's say invited people to the training. Please, Laura. Okay, let's say which were the other key elements we were working on. The background was we had this handbook on marketing techniques and engagement methods, the e-library on good practices. Then we had this participatory planning. We already had some stakeholders meeting during this period, some living labs, some large-scale events with citizens in the 6 regions. So this project was mainly a project based on interacting, on networking, on learning, on exchange. But actually, as you all know, the COVID intervened. So everything had then to be moved to online, to an online approach. So please, next. Okay, these are a reference documents that I wanted to highlight for this presentation. This was a very nice format. Next, please. Okay, this phase, the setting up of the framework, was the most demanding. It took a lot of time, a lot of discussion, a lot of interaction and iteration with the project partners, with the coordinator, and but we had a very nice result then. We had to put in order all the elements, all the above elements, all the inputs we had. We combine, synthesize, and provide the partners with a training which had to be adaptable, which had to be common for the 6 regions. So we prepared a basic presentation in which all the elements had to be present: the marketing techniques, the engagement methods, the time frames, the SAMP phases, the good practices we were addressing, the budgetary aspect. Was really a lot. Then, please, Laura, then we produced a tool for training, which was the so-called card, in which this card supported us ahead, then I will explain you how, in training people, in explaining, in making things, this complexity more clear on a common, very nice visual supporting tool. Please. So then we had to fix a program, which always had to be a common one. We fixed it in 3 modules. We had a one-day program. At the beginning, it should have been 2 days if it were a live program, but of course had to be online. So we held this mailing in 3 hours. So there was a module concerning the theory. It was fixed for all the 6 sites. Then we had a module on good practices. We presented practical examples with the cards, with that tool that we provided at the beginning. Then we had the practical training. The trainees were divided in groups, and they had to produce their theory, their SAMP, using the tools provided, the card and other visual tools that I will show you later on, please. Another tool we used a lot was the interaction with the audience. We had to face also this problem. People would have got bored having so much theory, so many slides. We had almost 100 slides in this training course, was in the training material produced. So we decided to have a lot of interaction through polling. So you assessed your level of knowledge step by step. So we had an ice-breaking survey in which they could assess their level of knowledge about the SAMP process. Then after the first module, we had a survey. Then after the practical training, we had another survey. Then we repeated the ice-breaking survey so that people could assess what they learned so far, and to assess how useful actually this training was. Then we had the normal feedback closure survey on training. Next, please. Okay, during the third module, the so-called co-creation, we divided people in groups. They had to set up their SAMP strategy with associated a roadmap. We did this online in groups with a facilitator. They had to provide this roadmap step by step, saying from the beginning who were the stakeholders involved, in which phase of the SAMP, which marketing technique they would have applied, which was the cost, and so on, going ahead until the end of the process. Please. They could use the card. The tool that I showed you in advance, is a tool that has to be built during the training. So according to the phase, they could choose which marketing technique and put it into the card, which engagement method applied to that specific phase, who were the people involved, the politicians or the stakeholders. How much did it cost? So with that, we have that euro there showing the single cost. If it were one, was not very expensive phase. If there were 3, 4, 5, was a more expensive phase. In which time frame we were of the SAMP process, at the beginning, in the middle stage, or towards the end. So for each phase of the SAMP, the groups produced a card like this. Go ahead, please. Then the content of the training, of course, had to be adapted. This was an important issue that we faced during the preparation of the training material. So we interacted also a lot with the single regions. We explained how to train the trainers, which tools were better to use to make it more interactive, how they could adapt in case to the local needs of the audience, of course. All the material has been translated into local languages because it was better for understanding, for sharing the information, to make it more catchy. Next. Great. Another aspect was how to involve the trainees. As I told you before, we had this online event. So we had to choose, we had a long discussion about the most appropriate tool for the online meeting. We revised also a lot of all the tools that were available at that moment. Each region has drafted a list of potential stakeholders participating in the training. Each has fixed the most appropriate date. This local training took place from the beginning of March 2021 until half of May. The material has been adapted to local needs, especially in the practical part. The material was prepared and sent in advance to the trainees to make them more aware of what they were going to be trained on. So, for example, there were partners that shared paper material. They sent this paper material to the trainees. I can tell you that in Lazio region, for example, we prepared a small booklet on the marketing techniques, which synthesized in Italian the handbook on marketing techniques, and so on. Everyone chose how to make it more effective, what material to share in advance. Then we produced also a common invitation, a motivation letter that was translated by each region and then sent to the stakeholder with specific invitation to take part. Please. So the output of this interregional training was, of course, each region had to produce a report according to a common set template in which we assessed the audience that participated, also according to their background, their knowledge, their education, and so on. The consolidated output of all the surveys that were held during the training, the details of the co-creation exercises made per group. So this was a big effort asked to all the regions. So they shared the single roadmaps, the budgetary aspects, and the cards. Group by group, they produced all this information. Then all the region provided the feedback on conclusions and observations. Please. These were the general conclusion, and I highlighted in yellow the negative aspects. In general, the training, although it was an experimental one, was quite successful because people were curious about the participatory planning. The topic was very much of interest of the audience. Often they found out that they were working on marketing techniques, for example, without being aware of it. They were working on some without being completely aware of what they were working on. So this training helped to focus on the topics they are working on actually. The good practices were considered a very effective tool to explain the marketing techniques and the approach. What the weakness of this course was the impossibility to interact by person, and this could have been a more proactive session. Although we stimulated them to interact a lot, we made them questions. We, as you know, we surveyed, we polled, we proposed polls, and so on. Please, next. So, what we learned from this experience, which was actually very new for all of us. The event has to be catchy. So, as I told you before, much interaction and feedback during the training. The material to work on can be shared, prepared and shared in advance. People are invited to self-assess the level of knowledge gained, and open discussion in groups has to be stimulated. Trainees have to be motivated in advance with this letter of invitation. If possible, you make them feel part of the European arena of a larger project. And they were very happy about that, we figure out. And of course, local languages ease the interaction and the understanding of the topic. And we had this very positive feedback, as I told you before, in using good practices and making practical exercises, tangible exercises based on what they know. So the good practices were something they were aware about. And so this was made a learning process more effective. So I think that's all from my side. No, next slide, if there is another one. Oh, okay.
Yes, sorry, I don't know why my My computer is reacting. Thank you very much, Chiara. That was very interesting to learn about the process, especially because I participated in one of the trainings themselves to the e-smartec partners. So it was very interesting. I think I have one question, one practical question for those that maybe want to feel inspired, which is what were the tools that you use? I mean, you had to adapt. You mentioned that being in person would have been better, but since you couldn't, how did you do it?
Oh, so we had a long discussion on how to, because we were all new to this, to making these online meetings and trainings and interactive sessions. So we have investigated many different tools, but then we decided to go for the easiest one. We used all the what Google provides. So we used the shared Excel, the shared Word, the shared OneDrive. So we worked online with our partners, and they could see what was going on. At least we did so in Rome, and I think all the others did the same. So we had these online things done, and was very, very effective in the end. So the easiest thing.
You know that the easiest was actually also very effective.
What was available.
It's not like that. That's good. And yeah, I think that, I mean, you did mention one of the things that you would improve was, yes, again, to bring it in person. But what do you think it's that, like, out of everything of the experience, what was the best that worked, that if you wanted to highlight one or two things that worked really well?
What worked really well was inviting the correct audience, because as I told you before, people were so stimulated by the fact that we actually were putting some order in what they were working on. So they didn't know they were applying some marketing techniques. So they were really happy to know. They were really happy to know that the SAMP, although they were working on it, they didn't know about the phases. So the right people, the right examples, be very, very, very practical. And of course, this polling worked really well also during was an idea, I mean, an idea that we had during the iteration process, which was really demanding, as some of our partners can be aware. We also have strong discussions, but then I think we had a good, a good product, I think.
I think so too. I think so too. Well, thank you very much, Chiara. I think that was very good advice. If anyone is thinking of doing the same, I think that now they know a little bit better how to do so. And actually now with our next speaker, I was sharing, so she can come. Yes. Our next speaker actually is going to show us how this training that was done by Roma, by Chiara and her colleagues, translate into a training of a region. She's Anna Polius, is a civil engineer, a Master's of Science in Transportation, and she supported the Regional Development Fund of Central Macedonia, as well as the region of Central Macedonia, as temporary spas during the first phase of the e-smartec project. So she's going to bring us now some of the insights and lessons learned. I will leave you the stage. Thank you, Anna.
Hello, thank you, Laura, for the introduction. So we will see the insights and lessons learned from the online capacity building in the region of Central Macedonia together. Of course, as you already saw, we had already the structure for the lead task leader, the RSM, and we decided to go for a two-day seminar, two-day workshop. The first part on 4th March of 2021 included the theory and the good practices from Greece and Europe. And in the second part, the next day, we had the interactive workshop. We invited 38 municipalities of the region, 18 representatives registered, and finally we had 11 participants representing 9 municipalities on the first day and 9 participants representing 7 municipalities on the second part. The representatives had a range of different positions, which make the workshop quite interesting. A preliminary survey took place before the meeting in order to estimate the level of knowledge and experience the representatives of the municipalities had on SAMS. we see that we had their experience in designing and implementing SAMP is moderate. The same case is for the knowledge in marketing techniques and strategies, while we had a wide range as regards the states in which the municipality they represent is concerning the development of the SAMP. As we already saw, in the first day, the theory had a short presentation of the e-smartec, the participatory approach, and some content and phases, as well as an analytical presentation of the marketing techniques. And then the second module, the good practices, we presented the sustainable mobility plan for the Roma metropolitan area. This is a strategic plan with long-term time horizon designed to satisfy people and businesses' mobility needs in the city and its surroundings for a better quality of life. The ROM SAM was generated through an intense multi-level participatory methodology, which makes ROM SAM a best practice on engagement. Second, the Voltaro event is an open space event in the coast of Thessaloniki, aiming at increasing the awareness of citizens for the adoption of sustainable urban mobility, mainly with the use of volunteers. And the third good practice is the Motivate app, an integrated crowdsourcing game initiative towards transforming travelers into active agents of change in the new low carbon era. Then the second day, we had the third module, which is the training. The tool that we used was the Zoom web meeting platform and the Google Jamboard as a tool for visualizing the discussion. The purpose of the exercise was the creation of a strategy for the approach of citizen bodies and their engagement in SAMP. We had 2 working groups of 5 people, and each one was in a separate Zoom room. They had 3 hours for the design of an integrated strategic approach of citizen bodies following all phases of the SAMP cycle. And prior to the meeting, all the participants received participants' kits, which included the handbook with marketing techniques and participatory practices to help them during the workshop. The study model, our city, was about a medium-sized city with the following characteristics. The population was 160,000 inhabitants. The average age of citizens was 45 years. The level of citizen responsibility was moderate. We had a densely built historic center and an incomplete sidewalk network, a non-extensive public transport network, increased levels of traffic congestions in the city center, increased use of passenger car, increased indicators of air pollution, high accident rate, and unconnected network of bike paths and sidewalks. As regards the macro strategic policy objectives, we had a 50% reduction in the use of passenger car, especially in the historic center of the city, 25% increase in the use of public transport, 10% increase in the use of bike lanes, 10% increase in pedestrian movement, 20% increase in the sidewalk network in the historic center of the city, 30% increase in the bus network in the city, 20% increase in the area of public transport network, and 15% infrastructure to enhance electromobility. As Chiara already mentioned, during the training, the participants developed the cards for all the 4 phases of the SAM, including the marketing techniques and the engagement methods, the target groups, the cost, the stakeholders involved, as well as the phase of the SAM cycle that is applied. Additionally, some roadmap were implemented with engagement methods and marketing techniques, as well as an Excel on check capacity building created by each group. Finally, one representative from each group presented to the plenary the finally SAM strategy. And a discussion followed that presentation. Finally, after the implementation of the 2-day training seminar for the municipality's executives, the participants were asked to fill out a questionnaire to evaluate multiple parameters. The questionnaire was divided in 3 sections. The first one regarding conceptual issues. In this questionnaire, we saw that the majority of the participants strongly agreed that they got effective insight on the participatory planning process, that the good practices increased their knowledge on the engagement methods, that the training was indeed relevant to their needs, and that they will transfer the concepts learned to their colleagues. As regards the organization issues, the virtual format proved to be easy to follow, the duration was sufficient, the exercise was easy to comprehend, and the interaction with the rest participants was fruitful. Finally, about the training team, they pertain that the training team encouraged participation, that it had a good knowledge in marketing techniques and treated participants with respect, and that the team was well prepared and organized. So finally, the hands-on training webinar proved to be successful for the region of Central Macedonia. The participants expressed their gratitude for the event. They learned about the e-smartec and some competence center of the region. The answers to the online questionnaire were very positive. The discussion that took place after the event was very fruitful. Everything worked according to the plan. And finally, the representatives of the municipalities are nowadays more equipped and capable to implement a successful SAMP. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna, for such a positive presentation, because everything worked very well and everyone was very happy. It's very nice to hear. I do have a question. I don't know, I see that, well, no, there are no others, but in the meantime, you mentioned 3 very specific good practices. On Monday, we saw that actually there was a collection of almost 50 good practices. So why these 3 in particular out of all the big collection that there were available good practices that could be presented?
Yes, at first, we of course follow the advice of the task leader for Macian to present the PUMS, the SAMP Rome, which is an integrated example and a very good practice for engagement methods. And then we decided to pick 2 different good practices, the Voltaro, which is a live event, and a good example of how to implement such an event in person. And then the Motivate app, which is an application, an online application, and it's important because it can be useful also in the COVID era that we have a lot of problems in implementing live events.
Okay, that's very interesting. And I mean, another question for me, since from the participants know, is that you already mentioned that there was some good discussion at the end, but you also mentioned that there were 2 small groups of participants, and sometimes it can be a bit hard to get the ideas flowing. So I want to know, how was it? How did you find this? Did you think that people were actually sharing a lot? Did you have to maybe incentivize them a little bit? How did you find it? Yes.
The truth is that we did have also some a little survey during the event, during the presentations, to keep the interest of the participants. And during the second day with the interactive workshop, we have worked to the groups prior to the training, so we knew how to divide people in each group based on the applications, so as to have representatives from different municipalities, people from that are in different phases of SAMS. So to have different opinions to hear. And of course, our facilitators did a great job in helping people speak out and helping them to participate more in the discussion held.
So that's interesting. Then it's a little bit coinciding with what Chiara said, that it's about finding the right audience and then knowing how to divide them. So I think that's good. Then it really comes all together at the end. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Anna, I will then give the stage to our next speaker, Alessia Giorgiuti, who is also, let's say, putting the cherry on top to these e-smartec capacity building activities, everything that you can do with just a few tools, how to really expand what you can do with a few activities. So Alessia Giorgiuti, she's a communication manager here at POLIS. She works in several EU-funded projects, and she actually works also at the POLIS communication with different activities. And she's, of course, a dear colleague of mine. So Alessia, please, I let you the floor.
Thank you. I hope you can all hear me. First of all, I'm very happy to be here today and to give this presentation, also to finalize the work that we've done for the e-smartec e-course. This presentation is dedicated to how to translate amazing content like the ones that has been developed during the first phase of the e-smartec project, and how to translate it into a capacity building activity like an e-course. That's what we in fact did. So going on the next slide, to start with, it is very important for us to give a framework, a beginning of the framework, which is that the e-smartec e-course build the engagement strategy of SUMP was developed throughout the summer and then launched at the end of September 2021. The e-course wanted to stimulate the proactive participation of citizens and stakeholders in sustainable human mobility plans, or SUMPs. And our idea was to tackle three main themes: participatory approach to SUMPs, marketing techniques for mobility planning, and engagement methods for mobility planning. Especially themes 2 and 3 are extremely connected to e-smartec and are the most original part of e-smartec, because we do work a lot already when we talk about SUMPs, about the participatory approach and engagement. But what e-smartec has been doing during the first phase, and is going to do until the very end of the lifetime of the project, is to channel that through some communication aspects that are kind of unusual for project planning, especially in transport, which are marketing techniques and engagement methods. Our main aim was also to not give all the instruments, but to start from the basics and to really give indeed the basic tools to understand how to establish a successful engagement strategy for SUMP using the marketing techniques and using the engagement methods. The e-course was presented and illustrated with good practices and with examples and tips from partners, and it was delivered in 6 units. You can see here the images that we've created to showcase the different units within 12 active weeks. But our original plan was to actually go for 8 active weeks of activity of the e-course. So, of course, someone might wonder why the change, why did we change that? Why did we divert from our original plan? And this is the first step of this presentation, which is going to pair facts with a sort of reality check and a rule that comes from this fact. Developing online content takes longer than anyone would think, especially when it comes to very good material. We've been using the training courses that you've been hearing about, so the hands-on trainings, as well as the handbook, and these both of them were very, very good content, but it is very hard to channel that into a format that is accessible, into a format that is understandable, and into a format that is interesting. And this is also a big reminder for when we're working with SUMPs and promoting the SUMP. It is very hard to communicate this, and we've seen this also during COVID times. So it is very important for us to not fear and reassess and readapt whenever there's the occasion, and to take time to assess the situation and to readapt, not to rush into making decisions like rushing into a next unit or a next capacity building activity, but to really settle in, understand what is going on, and to move and reassess and change eventually. In the e-course, we aimed also in terms of target to local and regional planning authorities. And of course, there's a good question related to that. Did we get them on board? And in brief, the answer is yes, we did. We did have people from different authorities. We had people from Budapest, we had people from Portugal, we had people from Greece. So we had people from different parts of Europe. But the fact is that everyone is busy and we are very drained by online environments. And also when we're talking about working in mobility plans, SUMPs are pretty demanding because they are a very big and encompassing kind of planning experience when it comes to urban mobility. So what was important for us was to understand this and to set clear deadlines, but also lead with flexibility and allow ourselves and our participants to reassess themselves and to respect the deadlines, but also to have the opportunity to contact us and find new deadlines or find some other options to finalize their exercises or finalize their contribution to the e-course. In the e-course, we also try to use a clear, down-to-earth and simple language and tone, which is very hard when it comes to talking about urban mobility. And we've seen this and we can see this in the kind of deliverables that we share when it comes to our projects. So what we've been trying to do is to broaden our target. And indeed, if that's the option and if that's the main aim, the best way to do so is to use and readapt the language, use and readapt the tone so that this information can be made accessible to citizens, because we have to remember that familiarity to the concept is different from engagement and is different from acceptance. They're all interconnected and we all need them to make a successful SUMP and a successful engagement strategy within an SUMP. But we need people to get familiar with the concepts, even the broad audience, so that they can engage with that and so that they can accept that. So we have to remind ourselves that not everyone understands SUMPs. Sometimes not even the people working in SUMPs can really understand the complexity of the entire planning. So it is very important to be clear and avoid obscure transport jargon, first of all, and also to really craft the messages and deliver the messages with the target audience in mind. And what about the content? When it comes down to the content, we opted for presenting it in a visual, like with visual appeal and project branding consistency in mind. Visual appeal is a very subjective matter. What I like might be not liked by other people. But what is really helpful is to keep the colors connected to the project branding, which is very important when it comes to capacity building activities and any element of communication and dissemination that is connected to a project that it's founded by, for example, Interact, but there are also Horizon Europe projects. It's very important to respect the project branding guidelines so that we also bring the consistency between the project and the way we talk about the project and the way we deliver the project, and we make the project known to the wider public as well as to other experts and stakeholders working in urban mobility. We also offered a variety of other formats, and here we feature a part of our video featuring my colleague Laura, which is very important. We need to break the formats. We need to be original and deliver the information in an original way so that people can have also a break for the eye and get engaged and interested in what we're saying. So a fact is that good content like the handbook, like our guidelines, are amazing. And actually they looked pretty good, but in order to get to a wider public, you always have to rethink and put it down to a T so that people can really understand and really can appreciate the visual content and connect with it. So have fun whenever you are tackling a capacity building activity, and present your units or anything that is going on using different and appealing formats. Do not just accept the content that you've got, even if it's like the best you have, without rethinking the format, without rethinking the way you're going to present it. Same goes with the activities, tasks, and exercises. Online exercises can be boring. Everyone is tired of being online all the time. So it is very important to experiment and create a variety of exercises that can really prod the users, the participants, into being in touch and engaged with the content that you're sharing. Another thing we took into account while crafting the content that we had was to go in depth and offer more than static knowledge, which means that we share success tips, which is very important. And that comes with the fact that to craft interesting content, you have to really share cases, examples, and tips. You cannot stay on the surface. And last but not least, we have a couple more things that we have to consider, and we had considered for ourselves, is that online environments can be draining. So we had to offer multiple channels of communications like emails, chats, and dashboards. We had to put ourselves online, so put ourselves into the exercise, interact with the content, and being available for interaction with the participants. We had to trust the hosting platform. In our case, it was the Ruprecht Academy, but always have a backup plan. So everything has been saved on a backend that we can use and we can reproduce in the future. And last but not least, it was very important for us to not be scared and seek for feedback from our participants. That is all for my presentation, and I hope I tackled pretty much everything.
Thank you, Alessia. Sorry for appearing, but we wanted to have enough time for our last presentation. Thank you very much. I found it very inspiring, and I hope that others do too, and felt inspired to create their own e-course. And without further ado, then I'm just going to give the floor to our final speaker. It has been great to have all of these e-smartec partners presenting, but e-smartec is not the only project in the world. And we have Kamila Dobek from the Municipality of Poznan working and coordinated the PE for Trans and other Interreg Europe, so that everything stays in the family. Kamila works in Poznan Science and Technology Park in Poland. She is an expert in innovation policies, smart specialization, as well as sustainable transport solutions. And I will give her the floor now. So Kamila, you can just say next slide and I will make sure to go through it.
Great, thank you, Laura. Thank you very much. Hello, I'm Kamila and I work in Poznan Science Technology Park, not in the Municipality of Poznan. I just wanted to have it clear that our organization is not connected with the municipality of the city. Anyway, thank you very much for the invitation, Laura. So I can present one aspect of Peer for Trans project I wanted to share with you during the e-smartec webinar. And at the beginning, I wanted to tell you that we, in Peer for Trans, we are the consortium of 6 partners. We are Poznan Science Technology Park. We are the coordinator, working on a policy improvement together with the Kalisz-Ostrów Agglomeration Association, which is area in Wielkopolska region. Our region consisted of 2 towns, not the big, rather small towns, and these towns they are creating agglomeration, which is also working on a sustainable mobility solutions for this area territory. There is also Coventry University Enterprise as the partner, representing West Midlands, Aristotele University of Thessaloniki, working on improvement of the policy measures for the Thessaloniki city, city of Valladolid, and the district of Grafschat-Bentheim, in the north west of the Germany. So we are quite small partnership in a comparison to e-smartec, but we are also working on sustainable mobility solutions for our territories, and we were working on action plans to implement new solutions in this area. So the slide, please. And I wanted to show you during my presentation one aspect of our project. I don't want to share with you, the whole process, the how we work, how we identified good practices, how we work on the action plans, because you all know how the Interreg Europe project works and what is the main goal in Interreg Europe project. You know that we have to work on action plans where we are improving our policy instruments and then implement it in the phase 2, which we are in right now. But I wanted to show you the one aspect of our project. When we were working on our solutions, on our action plans, we wanted to focus mainly on the people and do not involve only stakeholders in the project. Involved in a workshop, we wanted to involve citizens, mainly the people who have no idea how the European projects are working or going on. So the solutions we wanted to deliver at the end of the phase 1 was we wanted to do it for people, for citizens, by them and with them. And it was the main issue we wanted to focus on. Slide, please. What is important, we of course identified good practices and we wanted to use the good practices during the work on the solutions, but we wanted also to use the knowledge from economy, sociology and psychology, mainly to understand how can the people's behaviors and habits how can they be changed? How can we as the policymakers or somehow policymakers can force or motivate citizens to change their habits towards the sustainable transport solutions. Slide, please. So we decided to work with the people, what I already said, to find out what motivates them, how can we change the behaviors and habits. And what we used as a tool in our project was the citizens panels. I'm sure almost all of you are familiar with the citizens panels. So we invited citizens to work with us, first on the visions of the sustainable future in terms of the transport. Slide, please. So we work with the methodology when we ask them about the fears and hopes for the future, having in mind the sustainable transport solutions. And then the citizens work on their visions, how they see their lives in terms of the transport issue in 20 years ahead. So it was very fun work with them, and we tried to organize the citizens panels in such way that it would not be boring for them, for the citizens. So it was, as you saw on the previous slide, there was a lot of people during such citizens panels we involved in. And we tried to have this methodology as a really good, party for the citizens. So spending the day with us would not be boring for them. And we had extremely, luck because we organized the citizens panels before the pandemics. So it was possible to do it on site. We don't think it would be possible to do it online. We would not have received such solutions, such visions, such good ideas if it would be online. Slide, please. we also work with the citizens on the values. We wanted to know what's important for them. So in the first step, we wanted to know what are their visions, and in the next step, wanted to know what the values for them, what's more important for them in terms of the sustainable transport. So of course, we found out that the protection of the environment is the most important, but also health, safety and security, quality of life, nature, and other people are important. And this is the values we should focus on during development of the measures for the action plans. Slide, please. Slide, yeah. We also, in the next step, we use the design thinking methodology. We also created with the with our when stakeholders the empathy maps. We defined the target groups for the behavioral change, and when we developed or somehow designed the desired behavioral change we want to achieve in our 5 territories in our project. Slide, please. And we worked in a project with the expert of the behavioral change, an expert who know how to reduce the carbon footprint. And what we learned from them, that changing the habits is extremely difficult process and long process. It's not like this, that this old habit, we tell the people, you have to change this habit, and they are changing it. No, it's a long process when the people are first considering a change. When they are motivated enough, then take the decision that they want to change the habit. But it doesn't mean that they will change it. They just take the decision. And when this change is happening and it's repeated several times, then we can say there is a new habit this citizen has, and we can be happy that we achieved it. Next slide, please. At the end, I just wanted to tell you that we learned a lot during this project, during the development of the action plan together with the citizens. We learned a lot that the changing the habits is very a long way, and the key messages we wanted to share with you is that the change we want to achieve must be in agreement with the target group values. That's why we work on the values with the citizens. Different approach is needed for different territories when we want to change the behaviors of habits towards the sustainable transport solutions. This is completely different when the people are living in the cities, when you have, public transport, when you have the bike lines, versus the rural areas where the people have 20 kilometers to the school or to the work. So different solutions are needed for the different territories. When we want to change this behaviors and habits, we have to mixed incentives. There has to be the infrastructure for this change. So, for example, the bike lines, the buses, the trams, the trains. There must be flexibility. The rewards are, the motivation for different target groups, for retired people, for youths, for employees. There must be instructions how people should, use this public transport. It has to be, flexible, clear, and very easy for people. And there must be the engagement of the stakeholders, the policymakers, to somehow to motivate the citizens to change their behaviors. Sometimes, and at the end, I wanted to tell you that sometimes it's very, very difficult to change the behaviors of some target group, for example, for car addicted people. And we can say it's not possible, to change these behaviors. But we can work on this with this group on this change gradually. For example, first, try to motivate them to use the bike for leisure. And it could be the first step. So this process can be very, very long for this target group, for car addicted people. But in the long term, it's possible that some of them, they will change their habits and will start to commute by bike instead of car. So this was the lessons learned from the Peer for Trans I wanted to share with you, with the also e-smartec partnership. I don't know. I wanted also to ask you some questions that will be in the pool, I suppose, Laura.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much, Camila, for I think that the poll has been launched by Alessia.
Yeah, it's launched. So first I wanted to ask you if you are familiar with the citizens panels and if they are used in your region, your territory. And then in a second question, I wanted to ask you, what's your opinion? What target group is most suitable to be influenced? So if you could please answer my question.
Yes. That's very interesting about the citizens panels. I have to say that myself as a citizen, I have never participated in a citizen panel, and I would really love to. I have participated in other types of workshops like that, but I also have to say that I have never been invited. So that's something with the cities that I have lived that they don't reach out properly.
It's not so easy to be invited because cities has to, when they are organizing the citizens panels, they are, choosing the people which will reflect the structure of the, people living in a city. So they are inviting to young people, some retired, unemployed, employed, civil servants, big companies owners. So it is really, really mixed.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. I don't fit many of the qualifications, but I hopefully one day. I mean, I would really love it. I would really love to.
It's a fun, really. Okay.
I don't know if Alessia, we can see anything.
Can we see the results of the poll or not? Oh, so there are some people familiar with the citizens panels, but still some not. And I have to see the answer about what target group is the most to be influenced.
Likely to influence.
Yeah, easy to be influenced. Pupils and youths. And in the project, we also thought the pupils and youths are quite easy to be influenced, especially very small kids in the kindergarten and the first grades of the primary school. They are really fond of protection of the environment.
Yeah, and also they're a sponge. They can just learn what you say, new habits, anything. Yeah.
Employees and SMEs and large companies, they are also somehow motivated by employers. For example, in our Poznan Science Technology Park, we have some competition in a spring who will make more kilometers by bike for the 3 months or by walking in a 3 months. So this is the motivation. The competitions is a fun. The prize is not the fun because what can you do with the people?
Just to say I won.
But the competition is a fun. And the company owner somehow also the target group who can be motivated to change their behavior and habits. The retired people are really the less motivated. Motivated,
exactly.
target group, because they think if the whole life they use the car, it's not the time for them to change the habit. And I think they are also not thinking long-term perspective as we are.
Makes sense.
So this is could be an issue. Okay,
but
thanks, Ella.
it's nice that you had the opportunity. It's like people had the opportunity to say it's hard to change behaviors and they still went to something. So that also leaves us a little with the positive optimism that even though it's hard to change, I think that there are still some target groups where you can start and then the rest will follow. At least that's what we should try to do.
Yeah, exactly. It's you're doing this step by step, drop by drop. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, we already went over time. We started 5 minutes late, so it's still okay. But thank you very much to everyone. As I said, this is doesn't stay here. The webinar will be uploaded on YouTube, so please share with your colleagues, with anyone really working, even in your social media. Everything is welcome. And we'll see you next in the next e-smartec webinar or the next PE for Trans event. So thank you, everyone, and have a lovely day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.